I hope everyone's new year is off to a good start. Welcome to week 2 of our 4-part speaker series with Rotary International Leadership. My name is Michael McKay, and I am the president of the Elgin Breakfast Rotary Club here in Elgin, Illinois, in the United States of America. I would like to thank all of you for joining us this morning as we host Rotary International President Nominee Jennifer Jones. Good morning and hello, President Nominee Jennifer Jones.
Good morning and greetings to all of you.
We start all of our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we follow the pledge by reciting the 4-way test of the things that we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? As a reminder to our audience, we have a prepared list of questions for President Nominee Jennifer today. It will not be fielding any live or submitted questions in order to ensure for the smoothest conversation and the most efficient use of Jennifer's time. Good morning and welcome to club members and guests gathering with us today. A special welcome and thank you to District Governor Lyle Staub for his support and insight into preparing for today's call and his efforts into inviting the 65 other clubs in District 6440, other districts in our zone, number 29, and our neighboring zones. I would also like to thank District Governor-elect Kevin Stevens, District Governor Nominee Bill Kamisek, and Elgin Breakfast Rotary Club members Greg Carr, Alan Kirk, and especially Club President Nominee Rick Regner for their assistance in preparing for today. I would now like to introduce our honored guest and today's speaker, Rotary International President Nominee Jennifer Jones of Windsor, Ontario, Canada, who will become the first woman to lead Rotary International in its 115-year history when her term begins in the year 2022. Jennifer is the founder and president of Media Street Productions, an award-winning media company in Windsor, Ontario. She was the chair of the Board of Governors of the University of Windsor and chair of the Windsor-Essex Regional Chamber of Commerce. She has been recognized for her service with the YMCA Peace Medallion, the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal, and Wayne State University's Peacemaker of the Year Award, a first for a Canadian. And she holds a Doctor of Laws. Jennifer is a member of the Rotary Club of Windsor-Roseland in Ontario and has been a Rotarian since 1997. In addition to her current role as a Rotary Foundation trustee, she has served as an Rotary International Vice President, Director, Training Leader, Committee Chair, Moderator, and District Governor. Jennifer also played a lead role in Rotary's rebranding effort by serving as chair of the Strengthening Rotaries Advisory Group. She is co-chair of the End Polio Now Countdown to History campaign committee, which aims to raise $150 million for polio eradication efforts. President Nominee Jennifer led the successful #Rotary Response Telethon, raising critical funds for COVID-19 relief, which was viewed by more than 65,000 people. Jennifer has also received Rotary International's Service Above Self Award, the Rotary Foundation Citation for Meritorious Service. She and her husband are members of the Rotary Foundation's Arch Clumpf Society, Paul Harris Society, and the Bequest Society. President Nominee Jennifer, we are honored to have you as our speaker today. Jennifer.
Thank you, President Michael, and good morning, good afternoon, good day to anyone who is watching on Facebook. I know that you're streaming this live as well. And a joy to be able to be with you here and to share some thoughts and some reflections as we start today in our part of the world very early. And I know that you're a breakfast club and excuse me, um, a breakfast club is something that I probably could not participate in. It's such an early time to get up and to already be cheery, but it's a real joy to be able to be here with you today. And I know that you've asked me to speak about the future of Rotary, and right now we have incredible leaders, past, present, and future, who are on this call. Michael, obviously yourself included in that, but Governor Lyle, thank you so much for your leadership this year and for being someone who's been able to stand up and be sunshine in the middle of what has been some dark days. And District Governor nominee Bill, I know that you're on the call, and I am very much looking forward to the time that we're going to be able to serve together. And hopefully, we're going to be able to serve together in person. But right now, we're doing all of our best to make sure that we prepare for the future. And right now, there's hope, at least on the horizon, for all of us. So the future of Rotary, that's I know what you were interested in hearing a little bit about, and quite candidly, the future of Rotary is right in front of me. Each and every one of you who have signed on to join this call today is invested in the future of our organization, in ensuring a bright future for all of us, all of our members and all of our potential members, the family of Rotary. There are so many different things right now that we actually have to celebrate. And that's really a good thing, because at this point in time in our history, it's been dark days. If we can transit back to last March, almost a year ago, when we went into collective lockdown as a society, as a globe, every man, woman, and child on this planet has been affected by this global pandemic. For any of you who are joining us today that have lost a friend or a family member, a loved one, my sincere condolences to you. During this time, it's been increasingly challenging, and I know that certainly in your part of the world, in your district and in mine, we're certainly experiencing a very challenging time right now. We just went into another layer of lockdown this week, and where we have to remain in our homes. And it's going to be a few more months before we see things. But as I say, we have hope on the horizon with vaccines. And we are the vaccine people. We know vaccines better than anybody else. We've been working at eradicating polio and vaccinating children for 30 plus years. We've immunized more than 3 billion children during that time. We've raised more than 2.1 billion for this effort, and we've worked with our partners in the Global Polio Eradication Initiative so brilliantly during that time. The CDC, UNICEF, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, UNICEF, Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. And, we're not done. We know that we're not done until every last child is immunized. But I mentioned that even in the darkest days right now, that we do have some things to celebrate. And our polio infrastructure, our health infrastructure that we have built with our partners more than 30 years ago, is one of those reasons. And one of the reasons why it's so important is not only are we able to tackle polio, but polio plus, that plus part, is now COVID as well. And it is helping us to, in the more than 70 countries where this polio infrastructure exists, to shut down COVID rather. And this is critically important. We know that when Ebola broke out, that this same healthcare infrastructure helped us to shut Ebola down. And the thousands and thousands of polio workers that we have around the world, particularly in these more than 70 country offices, are being able to not only tackle polio, but also COVID. Back when we first went into global lockdown, we had to take a bit of a pause on immunizations, but what we didn't have to do was pause on surveillance and contact tracing, things that needed to be done for both polio and for COVID. And so we're part of the solution. And as we see vaccines unfolding in countries around the world right now, we need to use our voice to ensure for fair and equitable distribution of vaccines around the globe, but also to use our voice to talk about vaccine hesitancy. We know that vaccines work, and so we need to talk with our friends and neighbors about the importance of becoming vaccinated. So it is a critically important time, and I think that for us as Rotary clubs, as Rotary districts, regardless of where you are in the world, talking with our municipal leadership, our regional leadership, our national leadership, to see what kind of role we can play in the vaccine effort is something that is very important. India, for example, right now is going to be a best practice for us to be able to talk about for decades to come. They have already a national strategy in place, the Rotary leadership in India, where they're working directly with their Minister of Health, and they're on the front lines right now in their regions, in their local communities, ensuring that vaccines are getting into the hands of the most vulnerable, and making sure that anyone who is wanting to take a vaccine is apprised of it. And so, they've had this ability, because of the polio infrastructure, quite candidly, that exists there, to be able to get on board right away and help. I know that there are conversations in the Chicago area of being able to help out as well, particularly with logistics. This is something that we're also very good at, and providing logistics at a time when no one could have ever imagined putting logistics together to immunize the globe. But it's something that has to be done. And so I encourage those of you who are listening to have dialogue with your local leaders to see how help might be needed. And it's something that is part of our wheelhouse. Again, we are a network. We are leaders in our communities, and so therefore we have the connections to be able to open those doors and have that kind of dialogue. So when I talk about things worth celebrating, polio has given us one other gift in this past 12 months, and that is that we've been able to celebrate the elimination of wild polio from Nigeria, one of the last remaining countries that is endemic in our world, as you well know. We now have Afghanistan and Pakistan, the only two countries remaining, and we're making strides there. We truly are. But Nigeria, back in August, we were able to claim Nigeria as wild polio virus free. What a celebration that is, because not only is it Nigeria that's polio free now, but the entire African continent. And at a time when we need to have something to celebrate, that certainly was very, very good news. One of the other really neat little stories that comes out of that I want to share with you is that during the time of the celebration, one of our Rotarians from Lagos, Nigeria, Dr. Tunji Funsho, he was recognized as one of Time Magazine's top 100 individuals of the year. And the backstory on this is really kind of cool. Time Magazine editor-at-large, Jeffrey Kluger, he is someone who we reached out to as an organization, I'm going to say probably 6 or 7 years ago, asking if Time would be interested in doing an article about Rotary and public health. And he came back to us with, why on earth would we do a story about something like that? And so we had to educate him. We had to show him what we were doing, tell him our story. And consequently, he's become a very good friend of Rotary. And so we've had him speak at World Polio Day, at our international convention. And when it was time to select someone to be another one of the Time 100 most influential people of the year, he knew about Tunji, and he knew the story, and he knew the effort, the collective effort of each and every one of us to eradicate a disease. And so I know that Tunji is a very humble man, and he'd be the first to say that, while he may represent us in the magazine or online, that he is the face of millions, you and I, who have spent time putting our effort and our energy into eradicating polio. And so it really is something that was nice to be able to see one bright light in what has been a very challenging year. Something else I think that we have to celebrate on our horizon is that as of July 1st, we're going to introduce the environment as a new area of focus for Rotary, our 7th area of focus. And it is something that, quite honestly, it's taken us about 1.5 years to get here. And I'm very excited to see where this is going to take us as an organization. Back when the conversation was first beginning about whether or not we would include the environment, the conversation was really about whether we would add it on to one of our existing 6 areas of focus that we focus all of our international and community service work on, or whether we would put it in as a standalone area of focus. And past President Ian Risley was tasked with leading a task force, and I had the privilege of sitting on that along with some of my other colleagues, including a Rotaractor. And we talked with researchers and experts and Rotarians and the Rotary family to see what everyone thought. What should we do? And it came back very clear that having it as a standalone area of focus was very important to Rotarians. As a matter of fact, if we looked back at global grants that had been done in the year prior, more than $18 million had an actual hands-on impact to something that touched the environment. So Rotarians, you told us that this was something that was important to you. And so on July 1st, when this unveils officially, that means that global grants can begin, and I'm very excited to see what that's going to mean. I think we're going to see things that are maybe small little changes that add up to a big difference, very much like when past President Ian asked us to plant trees a couple of years ago. He wanted everyone in the family of Rotary, 1.2 million of us, to plant a tree. Well, that surpassed his wildest expectations, because there is no official count, but it's clearly in the millions and millions and millions of trees that have been planted, certainly recognizing his leadership. But though they continue to be planted because it spurred a movement. Likewise, Kalyan Banerjee asked us to change out our light bulbs to be more energy efficient. Well, when you amplify that by 1.2 million, or with Rotaractors, a couple 100,000, Interactors, several 100,000, the practically 2 million of us that are part of the family of Rotary, when you amplify that, you leverage that, we have the ability to make substantive change. And when we use our voice to amplify it, then it exponentially grows that much further. So very exciting times on the horizon with the environment. Also, Rotaract. One of the two last things I'll talk about, Rotaract, and then diversity, equity, and inclusion, something that's very important to us. Rotaract is an incredible new membership type in our organization. They have been what we called a partner for the longest time. But over the past year, we've changed that to be reflected as a membership type. And many of you know that Rotaractors are an incredible gem in our Rotary crown. And when we talk about the future of Rotary, engaging Rotaractors in our clubs, in our service activities, in our leadership, at all levels of our organization, at the club, at the district, at the regional, at the international level, is really important. And the reason for that ties directly into the next thing of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We embraced a new diversity, equity, and inclusion statement for our organization about a year ago, and really striving to be a better reflection of our communities, challenging all of us to take a really good look around our communities to see, are we properly and adequately reflecting what exists in our own environment. For many of us, we're not. And so it's an opportunity, a chance for us to take a good look to see who's not at the table, because it's the diverse perspective that we have in our organization that gives us and provides us the opportunity to solve the world's most pressing challenges. And so if we were all looking at things through the same lens, if we were all one vocation, or we were all one gender or one culture, we might not solve problems in different ways. We'd look at it through one lens. But because we bring a tapestry of people together, we're able to solve these problems because we see things uniquely and differently. Each and every one of us brings something to the table. And including Rotaractors into that mix is really something that I think is moving us forward. I like to talk about the Rotaract-Rotary relationship from the perspective of mentorship, and from the perspective of trying to maybe do this, instead of it being a mentorship where Rotary is here and Rotaract is here, that it's more like this, where we have a cross-mentorship opportunity to learn from each other. There's things that Rotaractors do that we need to take a page out of their book. First and foremost, if they've got an idea, they don't form a committee and spend 6 months trying to figure out how to do something. They just do it. I think that's a page many of us could take out of their book. Gender parity, balance. Rotaract clubs right now are generally speaking gender equal. And that, again, is a page that we're trying to strive for as Rotarians, as we look to even get our gender parity up to 30%. That's a goal that the board set about a year and a half ago, to try and have 30% of our membership and leadership positions at 30% globally, meaning the female membership of our organization, which currently sits at about 24-25%. Across the globe. In North America, we know that we're a little bit higher, about 34-35%. But other parts of the world, 6%, 11%. The Caribbean, 48-52% in some of the countries there. They're ahead of the curve. But it's not about a campaign for younger members or women members. It's about having a balanced perspective in our organization. And I like to think of it from the perspective that as Rotarians, we're business people. We're business leaders in our community. And in our own businesses, if we were to look at having a market share that was underperforming, we'd do something about it. Well, right now, we do have a market share that's underperforming. So it's an opportunity for us to be able to do something about it. And I think that just makes good business sense. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is something we're going to be talking about. There's not a quick solution to all of this. This is a decades plus long conversation. And a task force has been struck that is led by Rotary International Director Valerie Wafer out of Canada. And she is leading that conversation now with a collective of Rotarians from around the world. And they are a true reflection of diversity. And they're creating a toolbox. They're looking at where we are right now, taking a good look at our landscape as an organization, and then building a toolbox for all of us to be able to understand how we can have dialogue in our own clubs about how to maybe change, how to evolve, how to be a good reflection of our communities, how to maybe have some challenging conversations that might be needed to have. But under her leadership, we're going to see that unfold over the next 12 months, and I'm very much looking forward to what that adds to the future of our organization. So I know that we want to get to some questions and answers, and I am very interested to hear what you would like to know about, and I'd like to get to know your club a little bit better. So why don't I turn it back to you, Michael, and why don't we jump in?
Sure. I would love to begin with some questions for you. I'm more than happy to answer some questions on our club. Given the number of listeners from many different clubs, I certainly would love to focus more on yourself. But perhaps as we go towards a conclusion, if there are some things that we can share with you, I'm happy to give you the insight about a club like ourselves. Before we move on to some questions about your leadership in Rotary, I did want to touch on a couple of comments that you made about the pandemic. It's interesting that you talk about Rotary International lending its voice as an asset to the pandemic, and that's how we are engaging globally. We have so much to offer. We have this international network, and really, rather than engaging hands-on at this point, it's our voice and experience that we are bringing to the table. What do you see as a short-term and long-term with the vaccine being provided internationally? With our experience in providing the polio vaccine, do you see us actually getting engaged in a hands-on vaccination process?
Well, it's a great question, Michael. One of the things about the vaccines that we all know right now is that it is an injectable vaccine. And so it requires specialized medical attention to be able to inject it. One of the things that we know with polio immunizations that many of us have been able to participate in is that we have had an oral drop that we have been able to do. And so that, you don't need to have specialized medical training in order to drop 2 precious drops into a child's mouth. However, with the COVID vaccine, that's a little bit different. Let me actually give you a little bit of insight into what is currently going on from a organizing standpoint behind our effort. And we've actually got a working group together at the senior level, most senior levels of our organization. And so President Holger, President-elect Shaker, and myself on the Rotary International side, and on the TRF side, we have our current trustee chair, Ravi Ravindran from Sri Lanka, our trustee chair-elect, John Germ, who you're going to be hearing from later on this month as one of your meetings, and then trustee chair-elect Ian Risley, along with members of the Secretariat, our General Secretary, John Hugo, our Chief Communications Officer, David Alexander, some other leading experts. We have convened a couple of times now to talk about our effort and what exactly we're going to do. And we have another meeting actually on the 19th, so just in a few days' time, to start to formalize some of the things that we're going to do. But the use of our voice right now is, as you point out, it's something that we can offer because we have expertise in this and we have credibility. Our voice has credibility in this space. And so it is something that we're going to be definitely unveiling some thoughts on how we proceed more officially in the weeks to come. So stay tuned. There will be more information out of that. But right now, that is the essence of where we're going. Sorry, I can't hear you, Michael.
Sorry, I thought I hit unmute there.
Nope, that's one of the 2020 words that we're going to want to throw away. Unmute.
Yes. I should probably have my children helping with my technology this morning. So one more follow-up to that question. We should, sorry. As far as the polio eradication, I know we've been working on this for decades and our timeline has continued to push back and push back. How do we have projections continually on when we think the eradication might occur, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and how has the pandemic impacted those timelines? Was it 2 years and now we think it's 5 years because we're just, we had to stop and we still have to stop for another 6 months, 12 months or so?
Yeah, it's a complex answer and not an easy one. Let me take you back to January, exactly a year ago. And at that point, incoming President Holger and our incoming trustee chair, Ravi, they went to Pakistan to meet with Imran Khan, the president there. And they had a very, very good meeting. Mike McGovern, who's the head of our International Polio Plus Committee, was also with them. They had a very good meeting talking about the go-forward steps and what needs to happen. Things had sort of, there was a little bit of a lull prior to that meeting, and then the president, the Minister of Defense, I believe it was, they absolutely made a commitment to their full-on effort to making sure that they were going to help us get this across the finish line. And then we know the rest of the story. COVID hit. And so we had to, as I explained earlier, we had to take a pause on immunizations. We were able to resurrect them in July of this year, getting back out into the field and making sure that immunizations were being taken care of. That's one of the remaining endemic countries, Afghanistan being, as I mentioned, the other. We have other issues there, certainly with the Taliban and others that present challenges. And we're working with all different facets of government and with Rotarians and even with the Taliban, having difficult conversations to, quite honestly, in an odd sort of way, they don't want their children to be sick either. They want their children to be protected from this. So, there is a united goal, oddly enough, for polio eradication in that part of the world. But it remains challenging, and we know that there's, situations that are unfortunate and excuse me, that we try to avoid. So it's difficult to give you a finite answer on when. That is something that I wish we had the crystal ball to say, here's exactly when we're going to cross the finish line. But each day, each week, each month, we get closer. And certainly there are people above my pay grade who could probably give you a little bit more of a timeline on where they think we're going to land. But the one thing I can tell you is that we are committed to being there until the end. And we will be there because we have made a promise, and we have said all along that we will keep that promise, and each day we get closer to it. So I am excited that a polio-free world is within our vision, within our sight. I believe the finish line is something that we'll see hopefully within the next couple of years.
Well, there aren't many people above your pay grade in Rotary International, so that's a pretty interesting comment.
Well, I was referring maybe more to like WHO and some of the experts there in the field, Mike McGovern being one of them on our team.
Understandably, but interestingly, I think the reference to the Taliban perhaps is a good transition to some of the questions that we have about your personal involvement in Rotary International. What message does it send to the outside world that Rotary will finally install its first woman president at the international level? And how can we take full advantage of this as a global organization?
Well, that's a really good question. I must say that one of the things that I have been talking about since being selected back in August is that I'm extraordinarily excited, very humbled, and very honored to be able to be assuming this role. But I'm very clear in saying that I don't believe I was selected because I was a woman. I believe I was selected because I was qualified. And I think that that's an important distinction to make, that we're not looking at putting a woman in to check a box, that this is, it had to be something where where we look at women the same way that we look at men leaders, male leaders in our organization. We've just only been able to join since 1987. And so it's taken us time, just as it has with our male colleagues, to go through different leadership positions in our organization to a time when, as of recently, we've had a small critical mass of women who have served on our international board. And that is one of the qualifications. You have to have served on our international board, which means you have to have been a Rotary Club president. You have to have then gone on to become a district governor, then serve on our international board, and then have the ability to run for president of our organization. Now, I will say that one of the things I do believe, both for our male and female colleagues, I'd like to see that timeline compressed a little bit. I don't think we should have to see people serve decades and decades before they can assume a role of leadership in our organization. And so I'm very, quite candidly, hopeful that my leadership in this capacity is going to maybe inspire other female leaders, other male and female leaders, quite honestly, to say, if she can do it, I can do it. And if we have other women who are deciding that they want to take on a leadership role, either as a club president or as a district governor, that they're going to inspire others behind them. Again, both men and women. I think we need to be looking for the best and the brightest in our organization. And I sort of refer back to what I talked about. There's a great business case here. We have an underperforming demographic that we can pick up some members on because it's the right thing to do. And so I'm hoping that the leadership I'm able to provide is going to provide inspiration and hope and motivate others to see that this is something that is a viable opportunity for them.
I'd like to touch on a comment that you just made. We have prepared some questions today, both about leadership in Rotary International as a president who is up and coming in the organization as the president nominee, and also as the first female leader in Rotary. Mm-hmm. And we've gathered these questions not just by myself and President Rick, the nominee, but we've talked to other women in our club, other women in our district, and other men in our district. We've talked to district governor nominee, and we've pulled these questions together. And I don't in any way want to insinuate that you have been brought into this position because you are a woman. We want to ask these questions because number one, you are the future leader of our organization. And I have some gender neutral questions that pertain to that. But as the fact that you are an additional leader and the fact that you are a woman, we have questions that pertain to that. So I'm glad that you mentioned that you're not checking the box. We don't view that. And it took a lot of time in preparing these questions as to not make it seem or make you feel that we were viewing you as such. So I would like to continue with some of those questions about your unique role as the first woman president in our organization in 115 years. But in no way at all is that why you're included as part of this conversation. You will be running our international organization in 2 more years, and that's why we want to talk to you today.
Well, I will answer anything. Go for it, Michael.
Okay, well, very good. We talked about the commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. You spoke about it a little bit ago, and that is inward looking within Rotary and within the clubs. Externally, we want to add our voice at a club level to discussions in society and the resources to concrete actions in communities in general. What role should and will Rotary play in addressing racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion in our own communities, within North America and around the world, whether it be at this time or perhaps at the end of the next 12 months when we can expect some things to come out of the committee that you referenced?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I think we should take enormous pride in is that we are a non-political, non-religious, non-culture-based organization. And I believe that that provides us with a very unique platform to be able to champion dialogue in our communities in a way that is a safe space for conversation, for us to be able to understand that because we bring diverse perspective together, as I talked about earlier, I think that it provides us with an opportunity to apply our four-way test, to be able to say that we can be together in having different opinions, diverse perspective, but that we can respect each other in doing that. And because we're doing it not as a political entity, not as we have no government capacity to have this kind of conversation, I think that Rotary clubs actually have a very important role to play in every part of the world in making sure that we are a place for challenging conversations, whether it's about racism, as you mentioned, whether it is about gender, anything that touches on diversity. I think that age difference, there's so many different conversations that can be had, but I believe they can be housed in our within our organization because we don't do it from a place of looking for one side or the other. We're looking to create a place of harmony where safe conversations can happen. And so it is I think a fundamentally important time. I don't think we've ever been more relevant, quite candidly, as an organization. We're poised not only to talk about things like COVID, but diversity, equity, and inclusion. It couldn't be more pivotal in our world right now. Not only, certainly you're sitting in the United States where conversations are a necessity at this point in time. In Canada, likewise, we have a lot of need for serious conversation on a lot of different topics that are going on. Different conversations in different parts of the world. And that's actually one of the things about, I'm going to just say it as DEI instead of saying diversity, equity, and inclusion each time. That's why DEI is such an important and fundamental thing, I believe, for our organization, is that as you look across the globe, diversity and equity and inclusion can mean something. DEI, it can mean something different depending on where you are. A conversation that's going to happen in one part of the world might be about, the most important part of the conversation might be about age. An age difference in that society. Another country in the world, that conversation the most important part might be about gender. Another part might be about age and gender. Here in North America, age, gender, sexual orientation, racism, there's a lot of different things that are topics that are important for society, civil society, to be able to have. And I just think that we're uniquely poised to be able to people of integrity to lead that dialogue.
You've talked about the fact that you would like to, in fact, I believe you've pledged to grow the number of DEI summits within Rotary. What is your plan around that? And will those be entirely internal, or will some of those be external or inclusive of outside of Rotary, let's say?
Well, Michael, you have a bit of a crystal ball there, because it is something that I am going to champion, and it's something that I'll be talking about exactly 1 year from now when the governors-elect who at that point in time I'm going to serve with, I'll be sharing with them plans of what I'm hoping they're going to champion in their own backyard. So it's a little preliminary for me to let all of the cats out of the bag, so to speak. But I will say that having dialogue across the globe is a very important thing from my perspective, and so it is something that I will be championing.
Rotary is a large and diverse organization operating in more than 140 countries. What strategies will you undertake during your term as president to help local clubs undertake the priorities of that strategic plan?
Well, let's take a look at the priorities of the strategic plan, just so that everyone's on a level playing field. To increase our impact, to expand our reach, to enhance our participant engagement, and to increase our ability to adapt. Now, going in reverse order, our ability to adapt, that is something that when we put the strategic priorities together a couple of years ago, that was the one that we thought would be kind of an internal priority. It would be more about sort of, planning and logistics and different things like this. But it really has become our North Star over the past year. We have seen Rotarians, Rotary clubs, we have all been able to jump onto virtual platforms like this to connect the world in a way that has never, our world in a way that it's never been this connected. And quite honestly, as we look back and we reflect on some of the things that moved us forward during the pandemic, if we wanted to do virtual platforms like this, if we had talked in earnest about this time last year, there's no way we could have been where we are right now in this kind of capacity if we hadn't had our cheese moved. It got moved in a very profound way, and it's put us into this environment. I don't think we would have got here this quickly. It probably would have taken us another decade. And so I really believe that we need to harness this. We can't let it go. We've learned a lot. It's punctuated that we have a global passport and that we can be on a call. Right now, I can be in Ontario, Canada, talking to you all in Illinois. And, there can be 5 hours later, I can be talking to somebody in India. I can, it's crazy. Our world is just compressed in a very incredible way. And I think as we've been sort of looking around the landscape of our organization over the past 10 months, when something happens to somebody in another part of the world right now, and we're talking just like I'm talking to you, it affects all of us. And it's been really an incredible opportunity to, I think, see our world in a much different way, to realize and recognize that Rotary, it allows us to perform without borders or boundaries. And what an incredible gift that is to each and every one of us, that we have this global passport. So our ability to adapt has changed in a very profound way. I hope that clubs going forward continue to embrace this, that as a best practice for clubs coming out of this, that perhaps there's 2 in-person meetings in a month, because we have to be together. We're social beings. We need to be together in fellowship and friendship and service, the hallmarks of why we join and why we stay. But you know what? The ability to get together and have dialogue with someone. You mentioned that you talked to President Holger last week. You're going to talk to, Trustee Chair-elect John German a week from now. We're able to talk today. That wouldn't have happened a year ago. We just wouldn't have done that. Think of right now yourself, each and every one of you. If I'm sure that you're very much like me. If I'm reaching out to talk to somebody right now to have a meeting, we're setting up a link and we're looking at each other and we're having dialogue in a very different way. Just picking up the phone, while we still do it, if it's a business meeting or something, it's so much nicer to be able to do this and sit and talk to each other and have that kind of dialogue without travel expense, without time that we take to go from one end of the city to another or one country to another. We've been able to eliminate a lot of that. We need to be together, so I don't want to diminish that. But I hope that we take this and that we don't leave it behind, that we learn from it and that we factor it in the ways that are really solid for all of us. If we look at the other areas that I mentioned, in terms of going forward, and I don't want to go one by one, but let me just sort of give an umbrella that take in the other 3 of expand our reach and increase our impact and enhance our participant engagement. Things that I know that I'm very much focused on going forward that I believe are important for us as an organization is to internally focus on the value of what we get out of membership. That is a critical hot button for me, that I believe we bring leaders in and we create better leaders. And that's because of what we offer. We offer skill development. I mean, think of each and every one of you who's listening. I know personally I can say and have said many times that, I'm a better event planner. I'm better at board governance. I'm better at public speaking. I'm better at so many things because of my engagement, because of my membership in Rotary. And that's something that I think we need to offer to others. But we need to offer it in a way where we deliver on the promise. We need to ask people what they want out of their experience in our clubs, and then we need to deliver on it. So if somebody wants to become a better event planner and they're a banker, make sure that you put them on an event committee, or you champion them with coming up with a new event idea. We need to give people what it is that they're looking for in that personal growth opportunity. And then the last thing that, again, is sort of an umbrella concept, I believe we need to be telling our stories much more differently than we have. I am a very big proponent of storytelling and sharing what it is that we do with others. And that is how we attract people to our organization. When they see that there's like-minded individuals, then it's really easy to say, do you want to come and join us to do something good in the world? And so sharing our story in our own community, but even on a global level, is something that I know I'll spend a lot more time talking about.
I agree with you in your comments about the ability to look face to face. I think it's been the great blessing of this year in that it did move us forward 5, 7, 10 years. It kicked the cheese way down the road and forced us all, or many of us, to adapt to this type of interaction. I couldn't spell Zoom back in March, and now we're having meetings this way with Rotary and professionally. We've had speakers from Greece, from Australia, from Spain in our club, Holger in Germany, yourself in Canada. It's been wonderful and it's been interesting, and we love the local speakers that we have. But I've been in Rotary for 20 years, and at some point there are only so many people from your geographic region that you can hear updates on and keep it interesting. And so I think people will be more open to having speakers from outside of the area, as long as we're having people of interest, and that will continue to bring us together, especially when we can still see each other. And maybe that means we're all together and you are still apart. So it's some sort of a hybrid of that. Exactly. But it allows us to see each other and to have to understand the emotion on both sides of the camera, not a phone call, but to understand the emotion on both sides. Exactly. Based on your last comments, many clubs are interested in growing millennial membership, and social media is a primary source of information and engagement for that group. And as the founder and president of a media company, how can Rotary leverage your professional experience and help local clubs use social media platforms to tell our story, both as an international organization, and also as use it as a recruitment tool?
Well, it's a really good question. And if you look at where we're making the greatest inroads in how we're communicating from a corporate standpoint, our social media presence is definitely the way that we are connecting with Rotarians through Rotary's Facebook page in particular, and our different social tools. That is one of the ways that we have connected with literally hundreds of millions of people. And it is a way that we can connect without spending a lot of money. And when you think about it from a club perspective, being able to connect through Facebook channels, through all of the different social channels that our younger demographic would tell us that Facebook perhaps is maybe a little bit of yesterday's news, but it still is very relevant. And Twitter and different additional social platforms are places where we're really brilliantly telling our stories. And more important than that, it's the connection to a community that happens, to a bigger community than perhaps our club experience. And I think right now, it's a pivotal time for us as an organization, for our members, to see beyond their own club experience. And when you start to, the club experience is it is the most important thing. Being a member of your club is the most important thing that you can do, because it's this, as I mentioned earlier, it's the connections that we make, the social experience, the friendship and fellowship, and doing service together. That is the hallmark of why we join and why we stay. So the club experience is absolutely fundamentally the most important. But being able to see outside of that, being able to see that you're part of something bigger than ourselves, that we are part of a movement, if you will. That is, I think, right now, one of the things that these social platforms really provide the opportunity. As I mentioned, and as you said, having someone from Greece, having someone from Canada, someone from Germany, the barriers are down. And, it is an incredible opportunity for us to be able to harness that, to take that for a great ride. And it's social channels that are really providing us with those opportunities.
We need to get that at the club level, though, not just at the RI level, because the club is where the membership exists, and it either wanes or it grows, and the club flourishes or the club dies. So hopefully there is some sort of a level of support that could come down from Rotary International, perhaps through district, because the competencies may not exist at the local clubs. Smaller clubs may not have that level of expertise to actually tell the story, put together their own club site. So if there is something that can be done with the assistance of Rotary International to have professional looking local sites, I think that can help membership overall. So perhaps there's a way that we can work together with Rotary International's global growth initiatives and goals, but yet we're the ones in each of our communities are the ones that need to add the members.
Well, and you're speaking directly to brand, and that is something that is critically important. And Rotary has a very robust brand center where we have copious amounts of tools for clubs to be able to log in, templates for all different kinds of things that are important for tools for us to be able to harness. Now, let me sort of put it on to what you just said, that maybe we don't have the expertise in a club even to understand how to go onto the brand center and how to even utilize or access those tools. That's where the cross mentorship that I talked about earlier, in terms of being with Rotaractors, interactors, or even just interested individuals, grandchildren, kids, your own kids, who fly on these things. Whoops, I was just going to pick up my phone. They fly on these things like it's another appendage for them. I have a 9-year-old niece who teaches me, things all the time. She's just out there fearless in how she gets around on using her computer and different tools like this. So if there is in a club, if there is an absence of that kind of skill set, that's where you want to bring in somebody to help you with that, to help you sit down and navigate the brand center and see that there's a template for a pamphlet or a template for a public service announcement, or for web tools, for social media backgrounds, for different things like this. The most important reason out of that is that it helps us to look more professional. It creates a united brand. So imagine, if you will, if every McDonald's in the world looked different. They wouldn't be very strong, would they? And so every Rotary Club, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're looking and using the most relevant, latest tools. We went through an entire rebranding of the organization a decade ago, and I spent a lot of time on this part. And we have the new Rotary signature, which is not new anymore. It's almost a decade old, but I still run into clubs that are using the old wheel, and that it just does a disservice because we're not looking the same. We're not amplifying our brand. And so if we can look the same, feel the same, when someone walks into a community and they see the Rotary logo, that they understand that means something. It is an indicator of the kind of value that we have in our clubs. And so if you don't have the expertise in your club, I think that reaching out to others who can help you, Rotary's got the tools. We need to find out as individual clubs and club members how to use them. And so I think finding someone to help you with that is an absolute, a great first step.
I would love to say that that's a great second step. I would love to say that if there was a minimal support level at a district or an RI level to make sure that at a minimum that we're all at least looking the same. And then if a club wants to look especially good at updating projects that they're doing, et cetera, then that would be a bonus. Boy, that's a really special looking club. But at a minimum, perhaps a club website is at least putting out articles from RI or something. It can be challenging to go recruit somebody and say, hey, by the way, we need you to do everything for our club from a social media perspective. I think there is a need for us to get support when clubs don't have it. And these are other great resources to have, but I think there should be a resource in Rotary International that we can tap into. And I'm not saying somebody in the district needs to support all the clubs, but maybe they do. I don't know. Or somebody at RI or a department could support the clubs. I think that would be very helpful in having us look like the McDonald's, where at least there's common branding amongst all the clubs.
Well, Michael, you bring up something that's really important, and quite honestly, that infrastructure exists, and it's something for you to be able to tap into. Every club in the world. We have, first of all, we have an incredible department, media department and communication department at Rotary. So yes, establishment of tools, brilliant tools, they exist. Check. One of the things that drives me mad is that I can be at headquarters and find out about incredible things that we have access to, but our clubs don't know about them. And so where's the gap
Yes.
in
Yes.
between? And so that is a challenge. That is absolutely something that we need to get better at. Now, one of the things that does exist is that each of our geographical regions, our zones, has what's called a Rotary Public Image Coordinator, and they're responsible for those geographic districts. Then we have in each district a district public image chair. And then we challenge clubs to have a club public image chair. Got something floating around in front of my face here. And so that is the lineage that we try to use to get the incredible things that RI is producing to the clubs. But if there's a breakdown at any of those levels, if the regional public image chair isn't talking with the district public image chair, who's not talking to the club public image chair, then we have a breakdown. And then a club doesn't know of these tools that exist. So there is that infrastructure already in place. You have to be able to access it. You have to be able to know about it. And it's really great that you have your district leadership on the call here, because they can tell you the people who are assigned to these roles and hopefully make the right connection if you don't already have it with them, to be able to help you access these. And they're trained. They're trained not necessarily at the district or the club level. Well, no, that's not true. At our district assemblies, that's one of the things that we're asking people to do, to train our club public image chairs as well. So that's a conversation perhaps that maybe you could have with your Governor Chain.
And I will say that we have been directly contacted in district-wide emails from our public image chair. So I know exactly who to talk to, and maybe they even helped us to update our Rotary logo. So bring it into the current stat. Branding. One more question or talk about branding, especially given your background. I talked to President Holger about this last week. People talk about what is Rotary. And so I feel that they are often met with a lengthy, choppy, inconsistent response about local service, international service, weekly meetings, polio eradication, goodwill and peace, problem solvers sharing ideas, creating lasting change. I'm not sure that the person that asked the question could answer the question 5 minutes later. Mm-hmm. What is your definition of Rotary?
Well,
and
I often,
is there a simpler answer that we should be providing?
Yeah, we've talked for decades about having an elevator speech, if you will. Everyone having a personal signature of when asked that question, because inevitably we get asked that question. The place I get asked that question, what is Rotary, is most frequently when I'm crossing the border between Canada and the United States. If I'm en route to Evanston, where are you going? Rotary headquarters. Rotary, what's Rotary? So I have sort of finessed it down to a simple answer where I just talk about the fact that we're business and community leaders dedicated to doing good around the world, in our local communities and our international communities. And keeping it somewhat succinct in that kind of fashion. And it depends on who you're speaking with and the nature of what it is and why they're asking. But I think talking about the fact that we are leaders, owning that territory for me is an important distinction. So talking about the fact that we're professional and community leaders in our own communities, that's ours to claim. I think we need to say that. Being able to do good in our own communities through service, and our community as Rotarians is not just our community. Our community is our global community. So being able to indicate that to someone that yes, we can take care of something at the grassroots level, fundamentally important, but we also have the ability to scale to a global level. And the greatest example of that, quite honestly, is polio. One person in the Philippines had an idea, and consequently the rest of the world has galvanized behind that, and we're going to eradicate a disease. How cool is that? That's amazing. So the elevator speech is something that, it has to have something that is true to you. We back when we first were starting this branding exercise, join leaders, exchange ideas, take action were 6 words that really came out of that. And so I really talked a lot at that time about how do you frame your elevator speech around the fact that we join leaders. What do you do when you get leaders together? You take action, like join leaders, exchange ideas, I should say. Sorry, you join leaders, you exchange the ideas, and then you take the action. So that's kind of a nice lineage as we explain that too. But it has to have a personal aspect to it. It can't just be a corporate slogan. It can't be corporate speak. It has to be how it truly resonates with you and the difference that you believe it can make to your community. And we have so many different ways that we can touch on that. And you're right. We need to make sure that there is a standard framework, but an ability to make it your own unique statement.
I think some consistency can help, but I think I completely agree with you. Having it be personal rather than some corporate speak is going to be a much, much better answer.
Yeah, we have to go to the McDonald's end of the spectrum to look and sound the same, but we also have to make sure that our personal voice is reflected.
We've been on for an hour. Let me close my questions with this last one here. You're having 2 years to prepare for your year as Rotary International President. You'll have a year to serve as Rotary International President. What do you personally hope to do to impact the membership and the future of Rotary beyond your year as president?
Wow, that's a big question. Well, it's a big one, and it's probably an easy one at the same time. I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference in our world. And I think that if you were to ask any Rotarian, at any level of our organization, why are we in it? It's because we want to make a difference. And the opportunity that lies before me is that I have an opportunity to hopefully inspire and motivate our membership to make a big difference, to believe that they're part of something, that each and every one of us believe we're part of something that is, again, so much bigger than ourselves, that we literally can have an idea, that one person in a club can have an idea, and that we can change the way that others think. This is the greatest journey, I think, of our life, to be able to have an infrastructure, to have people around us, like-minded people, to be able to spend our free time doing stuff that makes a difference. And I guess at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we can be our best and our brightest. I want to use my own vocational skills to ignite that. And I want to make sure that we feel that we can take this connectivity that we have now probably exposed more poignantly than ever, keep it rolling, keep it going, and focus on how we can be the best and the brightest that we can be. So it's an easy and a difficult answer.
No doubt. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like to talk about or you would like to share with us?
Well, I said at the very beginning, I wanted you to tell me a little bit about your club.
Well, we are a small but mighty membership of 17.
Hmm.
We have been around for 35 years. We were started by our noon club, the Rotary Club of Elgin, which started in 1922. So they're coming up on their 100th year next year. Our membership has been decreasing over the years, as has the Rotary Club of Elgin. So we are not unlike many service clubs around North America. We are doing our best to try to grow and reach out, but perhaps we can be doing different things. It is a challenging time for us to be certainly growing. We're making attempts. We're not letting the pandemic stop us, but we are doing our best to try to grow membership. We're also trying to maintain membership during this difficult time. Many of our members are in it for the personal camaraderie, and they're not in it for the Zoom meetings, and we haven't seen them for months. So I can't, all I can do is try to encourage them and educate them and welcome them, but I can't make them do something that they're not interested in doing. So my hope is that on the other end of this, we still have at least 17 members, and that we are in letting them know about events like this that keep a level of excitement, that they want to stay connected to this club throughout this period of time during the pandemic, so that when we come out of it and we can be meeting again safely, that we are, and we can start growing from there. We have a good club, and we do things as only 17 members, but we need to keep at least 17.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're a reflection of so many clubs that are going through the same thing, and it's one of the hallmarks of kind of what we're going through is that we need to make sure that we're reaching out to those who don't want to participate in these Zoom calls to make sure that they're not isolated. One of the things that I've talked on other calls extensively about is just the mental health issues that we're dealing with right now. My husband's a family doctor, and it's what he's seeing on practically every visit, that albeit they're all on phone calls, but every patient that's coming in with some level of anxiety about what we're going through. And so even if they're not showing up, it's a great challenge for us to reach out and make sure that they understand that they're part of our family. And so it's not easy. It's not easy, but it sounds like you're doing the right things.
We are certainly doing what we can, and we will come through this, and we will be a club as we come through the other side, and we will have who we have, and we will have been making efforts throughout, and we can only control what we can control, and we'll go from there. So we will give it our best.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. May I ask District Governor Lyle, do you have any comments to add to today's conversation?
A few things that I want to mention. Jennifer, as you know, as district governors, we make official visits to each club. And in my comments at those visits, I lead with why we should be optimistic about Rotary. And my first example is you. Because I say that I know of no one in my time in Rotary who is a better choice to be president of our organization than Jennifer Jones. You've just reinforced that again today. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for what you bring and for what you will do. I want to follow up on one thing that Mike was talking about, which had to do with public image. Yeah. We take that very seriously in District 6440. As a matter of fact, we've offered last year and again this year public image grants, matching grants to our clubs, that they can get some financial support for updating their image, brochures, shirts, signs, some external facing images that represent us well. And they all have to be consistent with the new guidelines. So I'm looking forward to the application from Elgin Breakfast for them. Thanks very much. I want to thank Elgin Breakfast. They've done a great job on pulling this together. Mike, thank you again. And Jennifer, it's always a pleasure. I'm so thrilled.
Thank you, Lyle. Always good to see you, sweetie.
District Governor nominee Bill, any comments for today? You're on mute, sir.
I just wanted to thank Jennifer for sharing her comments with our district. We really appreciate her insight and her vision as we enter this new period for Rotary. We, especially me, am very much looking forward to working with you in the future.
Well, me as well. And I look forward to this time next year when hopefully we'll be meeting in person at our International Assembly. That'll be just about almost exactly a year from now. So we'll look forward to some bright days ahead.
Thank you.
Well, I look forward to your year, which will happen concurrently. And I would like to thank all of you who have joined us for this morning's conversation with Rotary International President nominee Jennifer Jones, which is the second in our Rotary Leadership Speaker Series. Our next conversation will be held on Thursday, January 21st at 7:15 a.m. with Shekhar Mehta, Rotary International President-elect. In the meantime, if you have any questions regarding the Elgin Breakfast Club, please feel free to contact us via our Facebook page, which has our contact information. Thank you again for joining us this morning, and we hope you will join us next week for part 3 of our inspiring Rotary International Speaker Series. Have a great week.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, that was fantastic.
Let's pull that off.